On January 4th, 2019, the night was still. The kind of still that makes every sound sharper, every shadow deeper. On Stevens Street, the snow muffled footsteps. The wind carried no secrets. And yet, a house sat waiting, its red brick walls holding decades of ordinary life, quiet routines, prayers whispered, phone calls, holiday lights carefully hung. By 3:45 a.m., the house would erupt in flames. Explosions would shatter the calm. Smoke would choke the street. And 2 lives, one nearly a century old, one vibrant and devoted, would be extinguished in a blaze that seemed almost impossible to survive. No one could see it coming. No one could understand why. Not yet. But investigators, neighbors, and eventually the world would learn that evil does not announce itself. It waits, quietly, in plain sight. And when it strikes, it leaves only ashes and questions. You're listening to Departed in Pennsylvania, Ashes on Stevens Street, the case of Virginia and Roger Houck. Chapter 1. Smoke and Shadows. The red brick house at 2901 Stevens Street in Palmer Township had stood for more than 50 years, a steady presence in the neighborhood, until it became a wall of fire one frigid winter morning. Flames tore through the walls, smoke curling onto the sky like a warning, and investigators would soon arrive, stepping carefully through the charred remains, searching for the story hidden in the ruins. Neighbors first thought it was fireworks. Then came the explosions. Smoke hit them like a wall, thick, carrying embers across the street. Neighbors ran towards the front door. Smoke poured out in choking waves. The door was chained from the inside. They kicked, pushed, but the fire fought back, heat burning their hands, stinging their eyes, searing their lungs. By sunrise, the house had collapsed into itself, a skeleton of charred beams and twisted metal. In the basement, investigators would later find 2 bodies, burned, unrecognizable, the stench of death lingering in the cold morning air. Virginia Houck, 97, beloved for her kindness and resilience, was gone. Her absence left a hollow in the hearts of those who knew her, a reminder of lives built over decades, suddenly erased. Her son, Roger Houck, 61, a calm, gentle giant, had been bound at the feet. Homicidal violence had stolen him as surely as the flames had consumed the house. Authorities called it suspicious. Neighbors called it unimaginable. Someone had targeted the Houcks. But why? The questions swirled. Motives, suspects, the cruel logic behind a deliberate act that shattered a quiet street. And the fire, horrifying as it was, had only been the beginning. Chapter 2. The neighborhood remembers. The snow hadn't melted yet, and Stevens Street felt frozen in more ways than one. The fire was gone, but its memory lingered. Blackened wood, twisted metal, and the stench of smoke that clung to clothes and hair. Neighbors whispered about Virginia Houck and her son Rodger. They were ordinary people, nothing flashy, nothing that drew attention. And yet now, every ordinary detail seemed like a clue. Her neighbors remembered her strength. Her nickname was Ginny, and she had been tough as nails. A woman who didn't shrink from anyone. She ran errands well into her 80s, kept a prayer chain for those in need, and always remembered birthdays. Her laughter was sharp and clear, with a mischievous edge. And she always had a way of making you feel like you were the one being spoiled. Her son Rodger was a man shaped by duty and love. A quiet giant, gentle and precise. He had flown from Seattle that week just to make sure his mother was safe. They had routines, little rituals, the tree at Christmas, a phone call every night, meals they shared in silence. The neighborhood mourned not just for the deaths, but for the sudden invasion of evil into their peaceful street, creating a shared sense of grief and vulnerability. No one could understand why, and no one could make sense of it. And that, perhaps, was exactly what the killer had counted on. Chapter 3. Investigators enter the ashes. Firefighters and police began their meticulous investigation immediately after the fire was extinguished, collecting evidence, including charred beams and debris, while documenting every detail to piece together what happened. Firefighters and police combed through the ruins with a precision that bordered on obsession. Every charred beam, every collapsed floorboard was a puzzle piece. But the house had fought back, swallowing evidence, hiding the story in smoke and ash. Coroner Zachary Lysek crouched in the basement, examining the remains. Identification would be painstaking. Teeth, a serial number on an artificial heart valve. Small miracles that the fire hadn't destroyed. Palmer police set up a perimeter. Detectives interviewed neighbors again and again, asking the same questions. What did you see yesterday? What did you hear? Did you notice anything unusual? Did you notice anyone? There were fragments of a timeline. A visit the day before, someone on the street, and a man carrying a white bag. The car that usually sat in Virginia's driveway had been moved 2 blocks away, suggesting someone had been there recently, raising questions about their intentions. No one could explain it. Not yet. Chapter 4. A Quiet Life, a Violent Death. Virginia Houck had lived on Stevens Street for 55 years. She had buried her husband, raised a child, prayed daily, and carried herself with a stubborn grace that earned her neighbors' respect. In her final years, despite being bedridden and relying on others for care, she maintained her agency and sharp intellect, which no illness could diminish. Her gentle, worn hands had a history of love. They baked countless cookies, ironed many shirts, and lifted in prayer for both friends and strangers alike. At 97, she had slowed, but her mind stayed sharp. She knew her routines. She knew her neighbors. She knew who she trusted. Her son Rodger was a man of quiet strength and devotion. 61, gentle, brilliant. He had flown home from Seattle to care for her again, as he did multiple times a year. Every Christmas, he made sure the tree was perfect. Every night, he called to say goodnight. Their routines reflected a deep bond, making the tragedy even more heartbreaking. That night, the snow lay soft on the street. The house was silent, but in the shadows, danger waited. Flames would soon tear through the brick and wood. Smoke would fill the rooms where love had once thrived. And yet, the Houcks, the mother and son who had survived decades of ordinary life, could not survive what was coming. No one could see it coming. And that's why the violence that claimed them cut so deep. Someone had deliberately entered their lives and destroyed everything. The thought haunted Palmer Township. How could a man overpower Roger Houck? How could one drag Virginia into death? And how could fire be used so cruelly as a weapon? Questions swirled like smoke. The investigators had no answers yet. Only the cold knowledge that life and order could be extinguished in a single deliberate act. Chapter 5. The suspect emerges. Weeks stretched into months. The house on Stevens Street had been reduced to ash. Yet investigators did not rest. Every piece of evidence was a thread, and they pulled carefully, hoping the strands would weave a picture of what had happened. The first clues were small. A car was parked 2 blocks away. A shadow crossing a neighbor's security camera. A man carrying a white bag. Nothing made sense alone, but as the days passed, the fragments began to align. Additional footage revealed someone lingering at the playground near Stevens Street. It was a man. He stood too long, staring uphill toward the red brick house. The street was quiet. The snow pressed flat against the asphalt, and he made no effort to conceal himself. An hour later, he appeared again, walking away, burdened with a bag that seemed too heavy to carry. Neighbors were questioned. Routine details mattered. Virginia Houck did not open her door to strangers. The people she allowed in her home were caregivers, church friends, neighbors, people tied to her life, part of its steady rhythms. Familiarity was safety. Investigators learned that over the years, others had passed through the house. Rarely, briefly, not permanent, but long enough to understand the layout, long enough to know when the house was empty, quiet, unguarded. That knowledge had become dangerous. The evidence suggested meticulous planning. Someone who understood what was ordinary to them and who recognized it as vulnerability. Every footstep, Every glance, every quiet moment of the day had been calculated. The police kept the suspect unnamed. He was a shadow, a ghost walking the streets, a blur on video feeds. But the strands were drawing tight. Those closest to him noticed the change first. His clothing was different. His movements were sharp and erratic. His attention fractured, his eyes distant. His mother reported him missing and possibly suicidal, then canceled the report hours later, leaving questions unanswered. Investigators reconstructed his movements. The afternoon of January 3rd, 2019, a swing set at Stevens Park. A pause. A glance up the hill at a red brick house. A man sizing up a home as if he was measuring, planning, waiting. Chapter 6. Murder and arson. Somewhere in the Lehigh Valley, the same man ran out of time. Numbers consumed him. Rent, $900 a month. Overdue. Impossible to ignore. Stability slipping through his fingers. Worry hardened onto obsession. Every passing day narrowed his options. Each moment a countdown he could not escape. He thought about a house in Palmer Township. He knew the routines inside. He knew who lived there. He knew when it was quiet, when it was vulnerable. Familiarity, once harmless, had turned into opportunity. January 3rd, 2019, mid-afternoon. Inside, Virginia Houck lay in her bedroom as she did every day. 97 years old. Her world reduced to routine. The rise and fall of daylight. The distant hum of life inside the house. The comfort of familiar footsteps. Her son Rodger had arrived from Seattle. He came to help, to sit, to care. An ordinary visit. A good one. The visitor appeared. Politeness as a mask. Threat as purpose. Cookies in hand, he walked as if he belonged. At first, nothing seemed out of place. A conversation, a gesture, a smile. But tension built in invisible arcs, curling like smoke before the fire. At some point, demands were made. Rodger refused. Violence erupted. Fists, hands around a neck, a struggle, brief and private. By mid-afternoon, Roger Houck was dead. Virginia remained upstairs, unaware, bedridden. The house was silent, except for the faint hum of routine that would never be again normal. Hours passed. Shadows thickened in the corners. Night settled over Palmer Township. The house waited, listening for footsteps, for voices, for the ordinary that would not return. In the early hours of January 4th, 2019, he returned. Rodger's body was dragged into the basement. Virginia was moved headfirst down the stairs. Gasoline soaked the floors. And then the fire. Flames erupted, devouring the walls, smoke hurling into the sky. Neighbors reported explosions. Firefighters faced a wall of heat and smoke. A home once warm with life became a tomb. Before the fire, he moved the car, Rodger's car, 2 blocks away, deliberately left to suggest no one was home. The fire tried to erase the crime, but some evidence remained. Duct tape, zip ties, red webbing, remnants of control, terror, murder. Smoke could not swallow the truth. And finally, after all the shadows, the whispers, the lingering dread, the name emerged. The observer, the planner, the man behind it all, the ghost on Stevens Street, was Drew Rose. Chapter 7. The Arrest. The streets of Bethlehem were quiet that morning. Neighbors went about their routines, unaware that the shadow that had haunted Stevens Street in Palmer Township for months was about to be caught. Law enforcement moved like a single precise machine. Cars slid into driveways. Feet crunched on the hardened grass. Radios whispered commands. Every motion was deliberate, rehearsed, unyielding. The house, silent for weeks, was about to have its occupant revealed, not to the public first, but to the authorities who had pieced together every step, every look, every choice that had led to tragedy. On August 2nd, 2019, Drew Rose was taken into custody, handcuffed and shackled, the calmness in his eyes, a stark contrast to the chaos he had left behind. Charges were piled high. 2 counts of criminal homicide, arson, burglary, abuse of a corpse, robbery, and reckless endangerment. The arrest came after months of painstaking work, after interviews, evidence, and confessions. His then-girlfriend had told investigators everything he had admitted in private. The strangling of Roger Houck, the return to Palmer Township, the fire that consumed the house, and the lives within it. Court records painted a portrait of a man with a fractured past, a 2017 shoplifting conviction, a 2011 DUI handled through a first offender program. But nothing had hinted at the magnitude of what he had done. Investigators confirmed that his mother, who had once worked as Virginia House caretaker, had no involvement. For the community, the arrest was a grim but necessary reckoning. The shadow over Stevens Street now had a name. Drew Rose was behind bars. And yet the memory of Virginia and Roger Houck lingered, like smoke curling through the quiet streets, impossible to erase. A reminder that some losses could never be undone. Chapter 8. The Plea and Sentencing. What began as a scheduled trial in October of 2019 never reached a jury. The legal machinery churned for months, the possibility of the death penalty looming, prosecutors weighing every detail, every piece of evidence. Then, in August of 2021, Drew Rose pleaded guilty. The decision was driven not only by the overwhelming evidence against him, but also by a personal motive. He did not want his daughter to have to testify. A jury trial would have forced weeks of testimony from family, neighbors, and investigators, detailing the horrific events of that January winter. By accepting a plea, he spared her that trauma while still facing the full weight of justice. The courtroom was heavy with tension. Drew Rose sat, handcuffed and shackled, a stranger to remorse. 39 years old, and every decision he had made was now under a microscope. Prosecutors laid out the timeline like a blueprint of horror. The cookies, the confrontation with Rodger Houck, the afternoon struggle, the hours-long torment of Virginia, helpless and bedridden. Witnesses spoke in careful, deliberate tones. Other relatives shared stories of devotion, of long-distance trips to care for a mother, traditions carried out with love. Then the judge addressed Drew Rose. Her voice cut through the quiet. She said, "You have demonstrated layer upon layer of human depravity. You took lives in the most violent, inhumane, and despicable way. You could have stopped at any point. You chose not to. 2 consecutive life sentences without parole were handed down. Additional sentences, 9.5 to 60 years for burglary, arson, and abuse of a corpse, ensured he would never see freedom again. For the Houck family, it was closure of a kind, but the wounds would fully never heal. For Virginia and Roger Houck, justice was measured in court transcripts, confessions, and fireproof evidence. For the neighborhood, it was the return of some sense of order, even as grief lingered like smoke. And somewhere in that courtroom, the cruelest truth lingered. Drew Rose could spare his daughter pain, yet had shown no mercy, no care for the 2 lives he had so deliberately destroyed. Epilogue: Ashes and what remains. The house on Stevens Street is gone. The rubble has long since been cleared. The sharp scent of smoke replaced by clean air. The street is quiet again, ordinary in appearance. Mailboxes upright, porch lights glowing, neighbors waving as they pass. But ordinary does not mean unchanged. For the community, the crime left scars deeper than the charred foundation that once stood there. Safety had been shaken, trust had been tested, and grief settled in like smoke that refused to fully clear. Yet something else settled too. Neighbors came together. They shared meals and memories. They spoke Virginia and Roger Houck's name aloud, refusing to let silence erase them. They mourned, but they also remembered Virginia's faith, Roger's devotion, their quiet, ordinary heroism. The fire destroyed their house, but it could not destroy their lives. It could not consume the love they built or the imprint they left on those around them. That survived. In stories told to grandchildren, in church pews that still feel their absence, a community determined not to let violence have the final word. Drew Rose sits behind bars, stripped of freedom, held accountable for every calculated act. Justice was meticulous and deliberate. It came in the form of a sentence, a courtroom, a finality on paper. But grief does not operate on a legal timeline. It lingers longer than any prison term. It rises unexpectedly, like smoke caught in the back of the throat. And still, so does love. In the end, what remains is not the fire, not the brutality, not the destruction. What remains is memory. What remains is devotion. What remains is the unyielding truth that even in the darkest acts, light endures, love endures, even in the ashes. This concludes this week's episode of Departed in Pennsyltucky. I'm your host, Andrea Dudek. Tune in next time for more true crime talk without the Valley Girl squawk.